Tony is a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. He's got his own. He's got his own show. He sponsors and he helps bring his wonderful services to many people that you know, including Charlie Robinson, and that's actually how I found Tony. It's been a while since he's been back on, but there's no better time to talk to him than when something in the world is getting topsy-turvy, and all of a sudden gold is at the highest it's ever been. How the hell are you, Tony?
It's good to see you again, Frank. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's great to have you on. So I'll just cut to the chase here. You are a very observant guy. You're always watching what's going on in the world. You, for a number of reasons, you like talking about it, but you also deal in some services that are really great hedges for everyday people to try to preserve a little bit of the things that they build up in their life and not have it all completely wiped out by the goings on of the controllers out there. What is going on in the economy, the global economy, that's got you with your quirking your brow and with your interest peaked? I know that gold is through the roof. People are doubling down on crypto a little bit again. I see a jump in Bitcoin. Can you explain what's happening to us?
Well, I'll do my best. I think what you're watching, Frank, and it's really the death of a system. It's the death of a fiat currency system, which is global, it's systemic, it's in everything that we transact in, and we have normalcy bias because we just think inflation's normal. Things going up in price are normal. That's not normal. In a free market, you should have declining prices because there's a better way to make something. And because we have a currency that constantly loses value, because that's the way that it's made out of nothing. It's backed by nothing. Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971. Gold was $35 an ounce. By the end of 1979, it was close to $800 an ounce. Gold went up 2,000% in the 1970s. That's where you get the Nixon shock and inflation. Paul Volcker was the head of the Federal Reserve. He raised interest rates to the teens to try to curtail that inflation. And the Federal Reserve, the central banks, have been at war with gold ever since, especially the United States. But something very interesting is happening right now. And you mentioned the price of gold breaking its all-time high on Monday. $2,135 an ounce. The previous all-time high, I think, was like 2,068. So it smashed its all-time high. And the reason is, it's not because gold is going up, Frank. It's because the dollar is losing purchasing power. It's losing purchasing power because countries all around the world are dumping the dollar. This is what the financial networks are not going to tell you about because they're looking at the soft land. Have you heard the language, the soft landing? And, they've got inflation under control. I saw an article from CNBC saying that there's a study out that people are saying, well, we've got it under control, and more Americans are starting to see that prices are coming down. Well, there's some prices are coming down because the economy's faltering. Less people can afford to buy. So, there's simple supply and demand. But most of the new inflation, that's already in there. And we're never going to go back to a dollar like we had 2-3 years ago. It's impossible. So really what you're seeing, Frank, is you're seeing the death of a system. The dollar is declining in purchasing power. Countries around the world are abandoning the dollar and the petrodollar system, and gold is going up. And at the same time, central banks all around the world except one. There's only one central bank not buying gold, and that's the United States' Federal Reserve System. It's not buying gold because it's at war with gold. And I think the most alarming thing that most people don't know about is that the Chinese may actually have close to double the amount of gold holdings that the United States has. That's a little known fact that's been researched, and we can't prove it. But, the Chinese buy gold off the books. They were secretly buying gold at the beginning of this century. And they have 60,000 gold mines, Frank. They do not export any gold. The Chinese do not export gold. They keep all their gold within their boundaries. As a matter of fact, if you ever listen to the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, he found a gold mine in China. He had it funded. He had a bunch of partners. He was about to do the exploration, and the Chinese government came in and nationalized it. So they're holding on to it, and I think this is the game because the Dutch recently put out a memorandum with their central bank looking to go to another gold standard. So central banks around the world, record-breaking gold orders. There's something going on, and the financial networks think, they asked Peter Schiff the other day, is this the top of the gold market? And he said, no, this is the beginning. And I happen to take it just a step further. I think it's not just another bull market for gold, Frank. I think we're seeing the death of the fiat currency system in its current form. I'm not an alarmist saying that, the money's going to go to zero or something like that. I'm just saying this is the way of the future is going to be a reset in not only commodity prices, but how currency is transacted, if that makes any sense.
It does, and I gotta say, when you look at the state of the dollar, you're saying that every central bank in the world except the Fed is going and buying gold. It makes me wonder: do they really just believe that digital is next, and that you don't even need anything then to back it? That it can keep up? I don't understand. I just don't understand that much, and I do understand that as this gets more and more out of control, that gold and silver is going to keep going up. But what do you think with the average person, if they're sitting on a small hill of coinage or bars or something like that? What do you say that they should be doing during the hardest of times? Obviously, you're not really transacting with gold bars. What are you waiting for is my big thing. To have some Mercury dimes, to have something to be able to trade with. I understand that once you are in an understanding with people that, okay, this is of historic value, it's gold, it's silver, it's copper. I'll give you this, you give me some eggs, whatever. But when you're talking about people diversifying their savings and trying to save at least a little bit of what they built up their lives with their labor, what are they waiting for when they have, let's say, I don't know, $50,000 worth of physical gold, which is not a lot physically, because it's worth so much, it's going to go up. What are they waiting for with that? Are they waiting for a new currency to like what do you see that? Is it just you're sitting on it like a bunch of it's like you're putting it in your nest and sitting on it? I always wondered about that too. What is the average person waiting for when they're stacking this stuff? Because it's very hard to transact in gold coins,
Well, I would say it's the same principle as a savings account, only better. You're not losing the purchasing power of what you save. I mean, gold and silver by nature are money. Gold and silver are money. And you used to have that quote from the bankster J.P. Morgan, gold and silver are money, everything else is credit. Well, that's not true. In our time, everything else is debt. So, fiat currency is debt. When you buy a home, currency is created. It's new debt. When you swipe a credit card, currency is created. It's new debt. So the entire system is built off of debt, and it's built off of fake. And so really just, I think something Warren Buffett, he was a long time just been a skeptic of buying gold. And he said, what am I going to do with it? It just sits there. Well, of course it does. And it houses the value. You can turn it into something else. Gold and silver are very liquid, Frank. And as a dealer, I guess I have a different view of it because I know, like, if it's me, I want gold coins, silver bars over cash any day because I know how liquid it is. And so when I've got my gold, though, I'm out of the system. I'm housing it from losing purchasing power. And when I want to get back in the system, I just go liquid again, and I can cash it into the fiat currency or whatever it is, local currency. I can trade it. I can barter it. I just think gold and silver are a superior money. You mentioned crypto earlier. I'm a fan of crypto. I was part of some of the first Bitcoin ATMs in this country. I was buying Bitcoin at $360 a Bitcoin. I should have saved some of the Bitcoins. I ended up, stocking my ATM. But I'm a fan of crypto, especially Bitcoin and as long as it's decentralized, which is Bitcoin really is the only truly decentralized coin. It doesn't have a CEO, doesn't have a company or a country that it's linked to. But it's outside of the fiat currency system, which is really what you ought to be exploring. How can you quickly, safely transact outside of our current banking system? And I'm not telling you to not have a bank account, but having a bank account is very important. You pay your bills with it. I'm not telling you to shut that down, but millions of people are unbankable. So at the end of the day, gold and silver are liquid. If you understand how to transact in them, and if you ever have any questions, you can always send something over to me at my website, and I'm happy to give you some advice on that. But gold and silver are liquid, Frank, and in my opinion, just as good as cash.
Okay,
so not better.
So you're talking about all of the investing that's being done by central banks who see the writing on the wall, and I guess they have to, because they're a part of the problem that we have right now. So I guess the real thing is that America is just is self-sacrificing, and everybody else is trying to stay I don't know where it really all goes, but the one thing that we have seen recently is this election in Argentina with Javier Milei, and everybody at first, at least a good amount of people at first, were really impressed with what he had to say. I liked a lot of the interviews that we were listening to. I loved how he went after leftists and, really at least on the surface identifying one of the biggest problems that we have culturally in a society that is dominated by so-called progressive thinking and ideology. But when it comes down to going and putting the rubber to the road, the first thing that we hear is that yes, we're getting rid of the peso, but he's not going to BRICS to see what's going on over there. He's not looking into crypto. He's not looking into reestablishing the bank, building on a gold standard. He said he's going to ditch the peso and he's going to think about adopting U.S. dollars. And that just did not sound like a very sound option. So what the hell did you hear about that? And I have to imagine you had some opinions.
I'm very skeptical.
Yeah.
Whenever you get somebody that's the head of a nation that claims to be an anarcho-capitalist, which I'm pretty close to. I'm a populist. I definitely like sound money, free markets. I like a constitutional foreign policy of peace. I like prosperity. So I gravitate towards a lot of that ideology. But it is strange. You start thinking like, well, the peso and the Argentine Central Bank was going to crash anyway. Do they want to blame it on some new movement? See, that doesn't work. Nationalism doesn't work. So do they want to throw it in that direction? I don't know. I don't know enough about him, and I don't know enough about the election, but that does sound, why would you want to have, more dealings in the U.S. dollar? And you can look and see, Frank, the dollar the money velocity is declining rapidly. And what I mean by that, if you look in 2001, 75% of all the global financial transactions went on in dollars. After the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and we put the sanctions on Russia and tightened the screws, after that, the dollar fell to about 43% of global transactions. And of course, that happened over 20 plus years, and it's declining rapidly. We have 40 different sanctions on 36 different countries. They want to get out of the dollar system. So the dollar is not where you would look to go to the future. If you want to talk about the future, you mentioned BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's where I would look to the future. And I'm not even advocating that. They're talking about a BRICS currency, digitized, backed by gold. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't need governments for currency. We have an international gold standard. It's the spot gold price is pretty much the same all around the world. Whether you're in Boston or Bangladesh, it's the price of gold is the price of gold. The price of silver is the price of silver, for the most part. It does fluctuate, and I think the Shanghai Exchange in China is a great example, because they're starting to see the disparity between the price of paper gold versus actually sourcing physical gold. So that's another subject altogether, but the price of gold is a fixed price. The price of Bitcoin is a fixed price. It's recognized globally. I'm wondering, why do we need these governments? And of course they need us to accept that fact so they can control the money supply. Because they control the money supply, they control us. And really, it's not really the governments that control it. It's the central banksters behind their banking establishment.
What about you? You're talking about China and their practice of mining and never exporting any of the gold that they produce in their country. I never really looked into domestic gold mining and production here in the United States. Do we have pretty rich gold deposits in the U.S.? We the most I ever know about it is the stories of the 1849 rush out there in California, and everybody wanting to go and get rich, and some people just panning for flecks of gold in the rivers, and that's really it. But how on an industrial scale, how much do we actually take out of the earth here on American soil?
I don't know the tonnage, and it's hard to get permits anymore because of regulation. There's production out of Alaska, Nevada. In our hemisphere, there's a lot of production. Mexico is the largest producer of silver in the world. So even in our hemisphere, we are producing a lot. So the United States, though, we don't import gold much anymore as far as the government. We stopped in the 1950s. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier with the Chinese. This isn't confirmed, but there's been a lot of research to go into how much gold do the Chinese have. There was a researcher out of GETTR, and I read this article a few weeks ago. I talked about it on the David Knight Show, and this researcher found he started really sourcing the numbers going back at the beginning of the 21st century, and looking at, because China bought a lot of stuff off the books. There was a lot of big buys even a couple of years ago, and they didn't want anybody to know that they were buying, which is kind of strange. Like, wouldn't you want to know that with the world to know that you're buying gold and you're enriching yourself? No, because I think their goal was to surpass the holdings of the United States, which is about 8,000 or so tons. And the researcher on Kitco found that there could be possibly about 16,000 tons held by the Chinese government, because they do not export, and we don't know what their domestic gold mine production is. So it really is an open question. And when you find that the central banks around the world, which I think is the biggest story not being talked about, it's driving the gold price. I'll give you an example, Frank. In the 1970s, we had runaway inflation. Nixon took us off the gold standard. Again, it was $35 an ounce. We didn't have the gold to pay these countries that wanted to trade their dollars out in gold, so he closed the gold window. By the end of the 1970s, gold was close to $800 an ounce. It went up 2,000%. Well, you had this runaway inflation, so Paul Volcker, that was head of the Federal Reserve, they raised interest rates to the teens. So by 1980, if you wanted to purchase a home, you're looking at like a 14% mortgage rate. And that's how they brought down the inflation of the 1970s. So that's always been the trick. And this time, you have Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve. Frank, he's raised interest rates faster than any time in history. So yes, Paul Volcker took them to the teens, but it did it over a period of 5 or 6 years. Jerome Powell has raised rates faster than any time in history, and it hasn't done anything to stop the price of gold from going up. And again, the price of gold is not necessarily going up. The dollar is losing purchasing power. That's why the U.S. doesn't buy gold. That's why the Fed doesn't buy it. It sees itself already as a holder, and if it buys it, this is my opinion, if it buys it, it's going to drive the price up, and the dollar competes with gold. It's at war with it. So we're watching something very historic, I think.
Well, you're talking about Powell versus Volcker, and I'm wondering about that. What are you're saying that Powell is raising the interest rates faster than ever before in U.S. history. What are explain like how fast and how high the rates have been going? Because for me, somebody who really takes in this news at very, very casual rates, it's not really the thing I go to first and foremost as economic news, which is why I bring people like you on to talk about it. But from a casual perspective, it seems like every time the Fed announces that they're going to raise rates 0.25%, everybody goes nuts. And meanwhile, you're talking about in the 1970s, things going up to the teens. So I'm just like, how it's such a dramatic difference, 14% versus, okay, we're gonna raise it up 3/4 of a percentage point, I would think that people would go nuts if they put it up to 5. But where are we right now?
Well, close to, are we in the sixes or close to that or higher? I mean, the mortgage rates are close to 8. So I think at the standard basis point is in the sixes, I believe. I follow it based off of what they're raising. And I know that we don't have a fractional reserve system anymore. I think it's another difference in our modern economy based off of, I say modern, in our time, based off of what it was in the 70s, which is completely different. When I'm talking about, the creation of currency through debt, it didn't used to always be that way. There was lending against reserve systems, and now they don't even they just took the wheels off. Nobody even blinks anymore. So all the currency's created. So the reason why it affects the market so drastically now, even with these small rate moves, like you're talking about 25 basis points moving up 1/4, it's just because everything is about liquidity and borrowing and access to that new currency. And whenever you raise rates, it slows the lending rate, it slows the liquidity down, because that's what this economy survives off of course, and it drives prices because there's new currency, which creates devaluation. So it's really, it's a snake eating its own tail. There's no way to get out of it. If you have an economy that falters a bit, you have to lower rates, which is what they're about to do. And it looks like that's going to happen closer to March, which is the anticipated date. So I think in this first quarter of 2024, Frank, I think that you're going to have a lowering of rates which is quantitative easing, QE, to goose the economy. And again, you're going to monetize the debt. And the dollar is going to lose purchasing power, and inflation continues, and we're back to square one. But this is an election year coming up, so it's really important that the perception is that everything's okay, but it's really not. So you're talking about the loss of purchasing power.
So then let's talk about going forward, because here's another thing that I think anybody in my shoes has heard for a long time now. You mentioned Peter Schiff before. I mean, he's been giving everybody sound advice about diversifying your savings and getting into physical assets. That's what you talk about, that you've dedicated your life to here. But it is all in preparation to a doomsday event with the economy where the game is up. And I have been hearing people reporting on the dollar is dead imminently for 25 years that I've been paying attention to it, and I understand that 25 years is really not a lot of time in a broader scale there. But man, how many more tricks? Every time that something like this happens, we hear, well, the Fed is officially out of tricks. The bag of tricks is empty. And then another 5 years goes by. How much longer do you really think that this can really go on before there is a unmitigated disaster?
I think it can go on for some time, and there's always the chance for a black swan event. But I think what you're really watching is the accelerating decline in purchasing power that I don't think we've seen in our lifetimes. And it's not going to be an overnight event. This is a lot of talk lately about people who've gone through the movie Home Alone, when Kevin goes to the grocery store and, they see the items in his cart and they recalculate it and say, well, all those items would cost, 236% more today. Well, what's happened just in the last 4 years is unprecedented. You have 80% of all the currency ever created was created in the last 4 years. I mean, that's unsustainable. We have, when I was born in 1979, the debt of the U.S. was less than $1 trillion. Well, it's 33 trillion and climbing rapidly. And you don't even have there's nobody fiscal hawks anymore in Congress even talking about it anymore. Mm-hmm. So we have 130% of our debt, national debt, to gross domestic product ratio. So 130%. That's unsustainable. And there's no return to fiscal sanity. Nothing's going to be reined in. That's the only trick they have in the bag anymore is to print. That's what they're always going to go to, because we have a currency that's not backed by anything. There's no accountability. That's their plan. And yes, you will have periods like Jerome Powell raising interest rates, And I think they did that because of the world's reserve currency status of the dollar. That was not for domestic reasons. I think that was for international reasons. But I'm not an alarmist in the sense that it's going to be a doomsday tomorrow. I think what you're watching is just the slow erosion of your wealth, because this isn't how the free market is supposed to act. You're not supposed to see increasing prices. If anything, you're supposed to see deflation. And that's what we had in the 19th century, Frank. I mean, if you bought a pair of shoes in the days of George Washington, if you went to his inauguration, you bought a new outfit, that outfit would cost the same in 1902. We didn't have inflation because we had a bimetallic system, gold and silver, and that was our money. So we just get used to it in our time. So I'm not necessarily saying you're going to wake up and see a 1929 scenario and it's Armageddon. It is possible, but I think what you really need to be worried about is kind of that boiling frog where you see your wealth evaporating. Anything that we do more and more work, Frank, for less. And that's what's happening in our modern economy. And those at the very top are getting richer. And those of us in the middle that are paying the taxes and fighting the wars and keeping the lights on, we're losing our wealth, whatever wealth we have. And that's why I'm in the business that I'm in, because it at least gives you an exit ramp and a way to, because gold and silver to me are energy. They're storage units for your energy and your work. So I encourage people to not to necessarily look at gold and silver as an investment, because I don't give investment advice, but as a way to preserve your purchasing power in the face of everything that's coming, which is going to be a further loss in that power to purchase.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's the biggest reason why still to this day, I don't fully grasp why people who detest the central bank fiat system really enjoy, outside of the privacy aspect of crypto. I don't understand it. I've had people tell me from time to time how blockchain technology can be used in new different I don't know, systems that have nothing to do with actual buying things, but are just really great for, I don't know, one way or another, proprietary technology. And I think that's pretty cool. But as far as a mode of trading, when we're talking about, again, something that is not maybe a little bit more secure and decentralized, but also has nothing of physical value to it that you can't actually hold in your hand, that always made me a little bit suspicious at first. And then when it became so much more and more popular with the last 5 or 6 years, where we saw these crazy casino rallies with Bitcoin and all types of even those meme coins going people getting rich off of ridiculous coins just because of, I don't know, the kind of viral nature to them all, and it just looks so volatile. And I'm like, well, man, if I want volatility, I would just invest in the United States dollar a little bit more. So I don't get that. Like, why are you still a fan of crypto, even when you can't hold it in your hand?
Well, and I'm painting a broad brush. I like the technology of crypto. I don't hold many other tokens besides Bitcoin. I started out in Bitcoin and I just came back to Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin ATMs. I've since sold them. The regulations are so steep. I deal in Bitcoin in my shop. If you want to buy gold and silver with me, you can buy it with Bitcoin. I'm a big fan of it because of its story. Still a mystery. There's still some mystery to it. We don't know all the full story of who Satoshi Nakamoto was, or if it's a group of people. But I do know that Bitcoin is a finite token. Only 21 million will ever be in existence. There's more and more adoption every single day. And I get what you're saying, that there's no physical representation of it. But I don't think Bitcoin can be stopped. I mean, again, I'm not an evangelist for it, but I think that it'll be part of our 5 years from now, it will be around. I don't know what it's going to be doing, but I imagine the price will be higher than it is today. Mm-hmm. I imagine so. Just given if the world doesn't end, I'm pretty sure that Bitcoin will have a trajectory up and to the right, and it's going to have some valleys, but that's where we're headed, I believe. As far as the entire crypto space, I have a podcast called the Wise Wolf Golden Crypto Show, and I just talk about the highlights of metals and everything outside of the monetary system that we know. You mentioned there's so much volatility. Like, why don't I just invest in the dollar? I agree with that. Some of those coins are awful. I wouldn't buy meme coins. I mean, obviously there's some stuff that went parabolic and people were able to retire off of it, and good for them. But I'm more of a long term. I buy stuff that's sound. Right now, like I said, the only thing I'm buying, if it's crypto space, is Bitcoin, and that may not last forever. But it is a space I still think it has room to grow. And you get the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world and the FTXs, and they make things look pretty bad. But a lot of those people have like establishment ties. You wonder if are they put out there to fail on purpose, to discredit, and then they say, "Oh well, look, we have this wonderful new token. It's called FedCoin." And
Yeah.
you just give us your biometrics and you get your UBI and you sign up for it. And so I am absolutely against central bank digital currencies. They're evil, and they will do nothing but create a control grid to enslave people around the world. And I think they want to link it up to one central system, either through the BIS or the IMF or both. And so I'm against that. I like decentralized everything. And I go back to a question I asked in this interview. It's like, why do we need governments for currency when I have worldwide standards for value and commodities and things that are easily made liquid or tradable?
Right. Yeah. And honestly, it's just one of those things where I'm always seeking new understanding of it. I don't dismiss it at all. I know that there's a lot of people who find it's a really great utility and a much better option than what we have in our wallets right now. So you have done such great work for not only me, but everybody in this audience, helping me set up quitefrankly.gold. That is all powered by Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. And I just hope that people more and more are coming to you not only for their own personal preparation, but also just for holidays, mementos, whatever the hell it is. I always put an ounce of silver in every stocking that I stuff this time of year, and I hope that keeps up, man. If you have nothing else to say, I have one fun question for you. But to end on, but if you have anything else that you want to plug or anything going on for Christmas, any kind of specials, I know that you always encourage people to call you up, even if it's just that they want to buy their first ounce of silver ever, that there's no order too small. So if you have anything fun going on, please let people know about it.
Let's take 1 minute. It's quitefrankly.gold. We're a proud sponsor of this program. I love the show. Melissa listens to the show. I have so many people that have gone through the website and that we've helped over the last year or so, and we're just really proud of that. And like you said, I have no minimum. I was a soldier when I bought my first gold coin, and I got ripped off. And the guy on the other end of the line, I call one of those 1-800 numbers because I've always been a fan of talk radio. And he didn't like me because I didn't have more than a few $1,000s. Well, I don't discriminate. I don't care if you've got $30, you can give me a call. I want to help you get into metals. That's what we do. So we were able to not only do direct sales, but if you go to quitefrankly.gold, there's a tab on there. It says Join Wolfpack, which is our monthly membership program. I highly encourage people to go check that out. We buy your metals for you. It's affordable. If you think you can't afford precious metals, go to quitefrankly.gold. Click on the link that says Join Wolfpack. It'll take you to my site, wolfpack.gold. Starting at $50 a month, folks. And we even have one for kids. It's called Wolf Cub, $35 a month. We put in fractional silver pieces, silver dollars, pre-1965 coins, stuff from sovereign coins, bullion rounds, things from around the world. And I buy them in bulk because I have nearly 800 members all over the country. We're trying to get to 1,000. So I put in a promo code 1776. You get free constitutional silver just for signing up. Just put in the promo code 1776. And again, that's our Wolfpack program. It goes from 50 all the way up to 1,000 plus. That's a great way to stack and get some variety. And look, we have hundreds of 5-star reviews, so go check that out.
That's
and
amazing.
What's the fun stuff?
Oh, the fun stuff? Well, lately I've been finding a lot of articles that have to deal with treasure hunting, and I love these articles. And one of the things that came up with us on Tuesday, just this week, when I saw that there was a guy who was snorkeling or scuba diving in off the coast of Florida somewhere, and they had found an old wreck, probably Spanish, and inside the wreck they happened upon maybe over $300,000 worth of gold coins. Now, I understand that this is going to be a little bit more of a complex answer, because not only are you talking about melt value, but you're also talking about historical value of any of these wrecks that have been from the 15th, 16th, 17th century, whatever it is. And I just wanted to know, if you came upon a sack of 50 coins in one of these wrecks, you have now 50 gold coins that are not only just big and beautiful, but they're also historically important. What are you doing to minimize? Are you reporting it? What are you doing to keep it out of the sight of the Fed? I know this is all hypothetical. Hypothetical. Right. I hope that you stumble upon a Spanish treasure tomorrow, but you probably won't. So this is all hypothetical. What are you doing with that stuff? Because to hold it, you want to talk about something that you can do even less with. That's some history right there. I would want to turn it into land or something as quick as possible. But how do you do it without triggering any red flags? Tell me about what you would do to be discreet. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I've heard some horror stories where people were like, well, I had the lady that works at my bank. She told me, well, my family, we bought this table, decades ago, and it was always so heavy, and we never could figure out. And then one of the legs broke off, and inside each leg was $20 gold pieces stacked all the way to the bottom.
Wow.
And you know what? They called the FBI, and they lost the gold. They came and they picked it up, and they had to do an investigation because, it was pre-1933 gold, so it was probably, illegally stored or whatever from after Franklin Roosevelt's executive order in 1933. I don't know what happened, but that was I hear that. I've heard that more than once.
Wow.
Where why would you, people, the guy that he was digging under his property and found a coffee can full of pre-1933 gold coins, probably $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 worth, and he called the police. I don't know what you're doing. I mean, it's clearly yours if it's on your property. I don't understand that mentality. So if you were treasure hunting and you find a bag of gold coins, you might want to have an attorney. I wouldn't call authorities. I don't know why that would be. Why would you? That's not a law enforcement issue, so don't do that. In my opinion, hypothetically, I'd call an attorney. I'd want to know what my tax implications were. I'd want to find a good dealer to go through that I could trust, and then you want to have them appraised. You don't want to sell them automatically. You want to know what they're worth. You talked about historical value. That's known as numismatic. You might have some numismatic value. You don't have to tell people where you found them. Gold is not traceable. So whether I got South African gold or Mexican gold or gold from Alaska or Russia, it doesn't matter. Gold is gold. You can melt it. You can reform it. Did you know all the gold in the known world, Frank, before the New World was discovered? Technically, I don't think that Columbus discovered it. Let's say they did, but there's claims that Vikings and the Chinese or whatever. We can go into lost civilizations, but let's just say, for all intents and purposes, it's 1492. At that time, all of the gold in the known world, all the kingdoms and all the empires, you could fit all the gold in the known world in a 6 by 6 foot cube. So the modern age, the Industrial Revolution, all the modern economy, there's built off the gold that was found in the New World, especially in South America, and it opened up a whole new economy. And gold is not traceable.
I find that's so hard to believe, a 6 by 6 foot cube.
Yes.
Like what was all the wealth of the old kingdoms in Europe built upon? Just jewels? What? Like I don't get it.
Land, jewels, right? And gold was such it's the commodity of kings. Only the kings had it. Only the wealthy, the aristocracy, the ruling elite.
But I would think that the king of France would have more gold than that himself. It's just.
It's rare.
Yeah.
It's even rare. It's even rare today. More steel gets poured in 1 hour on planet Earth. More steel gets poured in 1 hour than all the gold that's ever been mined in the history of the world.
Jeez.
It's not a lot that we have available. So it's still still very hard to mine. It's difficult to get out of the ground, and it's difficult to refine. But once you have it, again, this is like why I said it's liquid, it's money. And so you could, there's a lot of scenarios you could, when you go back to the original question, which was what would you do? I wouldn't know my tax implications. I wouldn't know what I had. I wouldn't be quick to sell it. I'd put a time frame on it. I'm like you though. Like if I ever hit that number, do I want to keep the gold, or I want to turn it into something like, farmable land or something? Well, that's an investment. That's a good idea. I like real estate. I like, something that produces. So I'm a fan of that, but gold is just the medium to, it's to house a little value, and why you transition into something else that you want. That's because its nature is money itself.
Yeah. And of course, it's always going to get to the point where there's going to be a paper trail. You find it, you contact your lawyer, you get it appraised, and then you have to make that decision. Am I sitting on this? But at that point, even if you sit on it, you have to report it. You have to report it.
Well, there's a technical question there. That's why you're going to need a lawyer. You're going to need a tax attorney. Mm-hmm. You got to call a law firm. I recommend Legal Shield. You can go to charlierobinsons.don'tgetpushedaround.com. Go over there and check that out. That's what you would want to do before you made that decision, so you can get access to the best information. But you definitely don't want to get caught on the wrong side of because now you got 87,000 new IRS agents that are on the way, and they want to know about your Venmo transactions.
Yep.
So anything over $600.
I know. Well, listen, hey, these are the fun questions to ask if we ever stumble upon a nice big pile of Spanish gold. But until then, we'll just have to keep our heads on a swivel and do it little by little. Tony, thank you so much for everything. I'm sure that this will, we're going to talk in 2024. There's only a little bit left of 2023. But thanks for everything again, man. It's always really a wonderful time when you come on.
Thank you for having me, Frank. It's an honor, sir.
All right, there goes Tony. Quite frankly, .gold, all powered by Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. If you want some of that personalized help on the matter, and a little bit of insight, and some really feasible and practical approaches to something that I know could be just as intimidating as going to Blue Monster Prep and figuring out how the hell you're gonna prepare for one catastrophe or another. There it is.